A man is dead beside Highway 72. His truck, overturned. His wallet, gone. His body cold in the December dawn. William Buck Crawford, 38 years old, Memphis truck driver, father of two. Found December 12, 1989 in Hawaii County, Arkansas. Police arrive. They see an accident. Rolled truck. Dead driver. Case closed by noon. But someone noticed what the police didn't. The tire marks in the dirt, they don't match Buck's truck. They belong to someone else. Someone who was there that night. Someone who left him to die. For 34 years, Buck Crawford's death was filed away as driver error. A tragic accident. A footnote in a cold case database. But in 2023, a forensic analyst named Sarah Pruitt pulled a dusty evidence box from storage. Inside, a plaster cast of those tire impressions. Evidence that had been waiting 3 decades to speak. What she discovered didn't just solve a murder. It exposed a lie that had been hiding in plain sight since 1989. This is the story of the tire tracks that wouldn't stay silent. The family that refused to forget. And the killer who thought he'd gotten away with murder. He was wrong. Before we uncover what really happened that night, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button right now. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Memphis? London? Sydney? Tokyo? This case has reached people all over the world, and I want to know, where are you watching from today? Let's build this community together. All right, let's dive in. William Crawford wasn't just a victim. He was a man, a father, a husband, a friend. Born in Memphis, Tennessee in 1951, Buck, everyone called him Buck, grew up in a working-class neighborhood where handshakes meant something and your word was your bond. He served briefly in the Army during the tail end of Vietnam. Came home. Married his high school sweetheart Linda in 1975. They had 2 daughters, Katie, born in 1979, and Sarah, born in 1982. Buck worked for a regional freight company, hauling loads across the South. Arkansas, Mississippi, Tennessee, Texas. The routes were long, the hours brutal, but Buck never complained. He'd leave before dawn, the smell of diesel and coffee filling the cab of his truck, his worn leather gloves gripping the wheel like they were part of him. Linda remembers the way he'd kiss her goodbye every morning. Same kiss. Every time, she says, her voice soft decades later. Gentle. Quick. Like he was saying, I'll be back. He always came back. Buck loved country music, Waylon Jennings, Merle Haggard, George Strait. He'd hum along to the radio on those long hauls, tapping the steering wheel, talking to himself just to stay awake. He loved hunting trips with his brothers. Friday night barbecues with neighbors. Watching his daughters play in the yard, their laughter cutting through the Memphis summer heat. He wasn't rich. Wasn't famous. Just steady. Reliable. The kind of man who'd give you his last dollar and laugh about it. His daughters adored him. Katie remembers him teaching her how to ride a bike, jogging beside her down the driveway, his hand on the seat, steadying her. Sarah remembers falling asleep on his chest while he watched TV, the rumble of his voice vibrating through her tiny body. He was our whole world, Katie says. And on December 11, 1989, that world shattered. Buck kissed Linda goodbye that morning. Kissed his daughters' foreheads while they ate cereal. Walked out to his truck, climbed into the cab and drove away. He never came home. And for 34 years his family didn't know why. Because the truth wasn't in the police report. It wasn't in the coroner's conclusion. It wasn't in the headlines that read, "Truck driver dies in highway accident." The truth was in the dirt. In the tire tracks. Waiting. December 11, 1989. Buck Crawford leaves Memphis at 4 p.m. His load, industrial equipment bound for Texarkana. The route is familiar, he's driven it 100 times. 8 hours, straight shot down I-40 and Highway 72. Easy money. Home by midnight. At 7:30 p.m. he radios dispatch. Everything normal, he says. His voice is steady, calm. The hum of the engine in the background. The crackle of the CB radio. Nothing unusual. At 9:15 p.m. Buck stops at a truck stop in Forest City, Arkansas. Security footage, grainy, black and white, barely usable, shows him walking into the convenience store. He buys a coffee. Chats with the cashier, a young woman named Brenda Mills. She remembers him. Nice guy, she tells police later. Seemed tired but not, like, out of it or anything. He was fine. Buck leaves the truck stop at 9:42 p.m. That's the last confirmed sighting of William Crawford alive. Between 9:42 p.m. and 11:30 p.m., something happens. Something that will remain a mystery for over 3 decades. Buck's truck leaves Highway 72 near the town of Goodwin, Arkansas, Population 127. A blink and you miss it farming community where cotton fields stretch to the horizon and the nearest gas station is 20 miles away. There are no street lights. No witnesses. Just darkness. At 6:47 a.m. on December 12th, a farmer named Earl Simmons drives past a section of Highway 72 where the shoulder slopes into a shallow ditch. He sees something. A truck. Overturned. Lying on its side like a fallen giant. Earl pulls over. Climbs out of his own vehicle. Walks closer. That's when he sees the body. Buck Crawford is lying face down in the dirt 10 feet from the cab. His arms are bent at unnatural angles. His face is bruised, swollen. Blood has dried in the dust around him. Earl calls 911. There's been an accident, he says, his voice shaking. A truck. A man. He's dead. Police arrive within 20 minutes. They see the overturned truck. The body. The open cab door. They see tire impressions in the dirt, fresh, deep, cutting through the earth like scars. But they don't ask the right questions. They don't wonder why there are 2 sets of tire tracks. They don't wonder why Buck's wallet is missing. They don't wonder why the CB radio inside the cab is smashed. Not from the crash but deliberately, like someone wanted to destroy it. They see what they expect to see, an accident. By noon the case is closed. But the tire tracks? They tell a different story. A story of betrayal. Of violence. Of murder. And for 34 years no one listens. Sergeant Tom Ridley arrives at the scene at 7:15 a.m. He's 54 years old. A 20-year veteran of the Arkansas State Police. 6 months from retirement. He's seen plenty of highway accidents in his career. Too many. Drunk drivers. Fallen asleep at the wheel. Rollover crashes. This one looks the same. Ridley surveys the scene. Overturned truck. Body outside the cab. No skid marks leading up to the crash. His conclusion is immediate. Driver fatigue. Guy fell asleep, Ridley tells his partner. Lost control. Roll the truck. Happens all the time. By 10:30 a.m. the coroner arrives. Dr. Marcus Holt examines Buck's body on site. He notes the bruising, the broken ribs, the defensive wounds on Buck's hands. But Holt doesn't question Ridley's conclusion. He writes in his report, blunt force trauma consistent with vehicular accident. By noon the case is closed. Accidental death. Driver error. File it away. But the evidence doesn't match. Buck's wallet is missing. Never recovered. Why would a wallet go missing in a solo accident? The CB radio inside the cab is destroyed, not crushed by the rollover but smashed. Like someone took a hammer to it. What? And then there are the tire marks. A local deputy, Officer Ray Hutchins, notices them while processing the scene. 2 sets of impressions in the dirt. One set matches Buck's truck. The other doesn't. Hutchins points this out to Ridley. Sarge, these tracks don't match. There was another vehicle here. Ridley barely glances at them. Probably from another truck passing by earlier, he says. Unrelated. Hutchins presses. But Sarge. Drop it, Ray. We've got a cause of death. Let's move on. The tire impressions are photographed. A plaster cast is made, standard procedure even if no one thinks it matters. The cast is labeled, bagged, and sent to evidence storage. And there it sits. For 34 years. Meanwhile, a witness comes forward. Darlene Hopper, a 44-year-old farmer's wife who lives 2 miles from the crash site, calls the police. She tells them she saw a dark pickup truck speeding away from the area around 10:30 p.m. the night before. It was hauling, she says. Like whoever was driving didn't want to be seen. Ridley dismisses her. Ma'am, lots of trucks use that highway. Could have been anyone. Darlene insists. It was dark blue or black. Looked like a Ford. And it came from the direction of that crash. Ridley thanks her for calling. He doesn't follow up. Linda Crawford is notified of her husband's death that afternoon. She collapses when she hears. Her daughters are at school. She has to pick them up, bring them home, and tell them their father is never coming back. But Linda doesn't believe it was an accident. She knows Buck. He was careful. Experienced. He wouldn't just fall asleep and crash. She hires a private investigator, a man named James Koslodz, a former Memphis cop who now works cold cases. Koslodz arrives in Goodwin 3 days later. He examines the crash site. He reads the police report. He looks at the photos. And immediately he sees what Ridley didn't. The bruising on Buck's ribs, those aren't from a crash. They're from being beaten. The defensive wounds on his hands, Buck was fighting someone. The missing wallet. The smashed radio. The second set of tire tracks. Koslodz writes a 14-page report detailing his findings. He submits it to the Arkansas State Police. They ignore it. Tom Ridley retires in June 1990. He never thinks about Buck Crawford again. But someone else does. Goodwin, Arkansas, is the kind of town where everyone knows everyone's business. And after Buck Crawford's death, people start talking. Some say Buck was involved in drug running. No evidence. Just gossip. Others say he had gambling debts. Also false. Buck didn't gamble. But one name keeps coming up. Whispered in diners. Muttered at gas stations. Spoken in hushed tones at the post office. Darrell Wayne Estes. Estes is 34 years old in 1989. A mechanic. Lives on the outskirts of town in a rusted trailer surrounded by car parts and broken-down trucks. He's got a reputation, bar fights, shady deals, a temper that can turn violent in seconds. People avoid him. And now, people are saying they saw his truck near Highway 72 the night Buck died. A local man, Bobby Kern, tells police he saw Buck and Estes arguing at the Forest City truck stop a week before Buck's death. They were heated, Kern says. Darrell was pointing his finger in Buck's face. Buck looked pissed. Kern reports this to Sergeant Ridley. Ridley writes it down. Does nothing with it. Another witness, a bartender named Sheila Grant, says Estes came into her bar the night of December 11th around 11 p.m. He was drunk. Agitated. His knuckles were bruised. He looked like he'd been in a fight, she tells police. Ridley interviews Estes on December 15, 1989. Estes denies everything. I didn't know the guy, he says. Never met him. Wasn't anywhere near Highway 72 that night. Ridley asks about the truck stop argument. Kern's a liar, Estes says. Never happened. Ridley asks about the bruised knuckles. I work on cars. I bang my hands up all the time. There's no physical evidence tying Estes to the scene. No fingerprints. No weapon. No witnesses who saw him at the crash site. Ridley closes the interview. Estes is never charged. But the town doesn't forget. Some believe Estes is guilty. Others think he's being scapegoated, just another rough guy getting blamed because he doesn't fit in. Linda Crawford believes in her gut that Darrell Wayne Estes killed her husband. But belief isn't proof. Years pass. Estes moves to Texas in 1992. The whispers fade. Buck Crawford's case goes cold. And for 3 decades, it seems like the end of the story. But tire tracks don't lie. Even when people do. Linda Crawford never stops believing her husband was murdered. Every year on Buck's birthday, March 3rd, she calls the Arkansas State Police. She asks if there's been any progress on his case. The answer is always the same. No, ma'am. I'm sorry. She keeps James Koslodz's 14-page report in a binder on her kitchen table. She reads it sometimes late at night when the house is quiet and her daughters are asleep. Katie and Sarah grow up without their father. Katie becomes a nurse. Sarah becomes a teacher. Both carry the weight of unanswered questions. Both wonder sometimes if they'll ever know what really happened. Linda remarries in 1997. A good man. Kind. Patient. But she never stops using the name Crawford. Buck deserves that much, she says. Meanwhile, James Koslodz never lets go of the case. He retires from private investigation in 2005, but he keeps a file on Buck Crawford in his home office. A thick folder filled with photos, reports, witness statements, theories. He tracks Darrell Wayne Estes. Estes is arrested twice in Texas. Once in 1998 for assault, once in 2004 for the same. He serves short stints in county jail. Nothing connects him back to Arkansas. But Koslodz believes. He writes letters to the Arkansas State Police every few years, asking them to reopen Buck's case. They never do. In 2018, James Koslodz dies of a heart attack. His daughter, Emma, finds the Buck Crawford file while cleaning out his office. She reads through it. She cries. She contacts Linda Crawford. The two women talk on the phone for an hour. They cry together. Your father never gave up, Linda tells her. Neither will I. But by 2020, the case seems hopeless. The original evidence, crime scene photos, the coroner's report, the plaster cast of the tire impressions, has been stored in a forgotten corner of the Arkansas State Police warehouse. Shelf 12. Box 447C. Warehouse 3. Untouched. Waiting. The detectives who worked the case are dead or retired. The witnesses are aging. The town of Goodwin has moved on. Buck Crawford is a footnote in a cold case database. A name in a file. A statistic. And then, in March 2023, everything changes. A new forensic analyst, young, determined, tech-savvy, is hired by the Arkansas State Police Cold Case Unit. Her name is Sarah Pruitt. She's 32 years old. She's been trained in advanced forensic techniques, DNA analysis, tire forensics, digital reconstruction. She's assigned to review unsolved cases from the 1980s and 90s. And in March 2023, she pulls a box from storage. Box 447C. Inside, William Crawford. Sarah Pruitt opens the file. And she sees something no one else saw. The tire tracks. Sarah Pruitt stares at the plaster cast. It's been sitting in evidence for 34 years. Dusty. Forgotten. But the impressions are still clear, deep grooves pressed into hardened plaster, a perfect snapshot of the tire that left them. Pruitt knows tire forensics has evolved dramatically since 1989. Back then, investigators could only visually compare treads. Now, labs use 3D scanning and database matching to identify specific makes and models. She sends the cast to a tire forensics lab in Virginia. 2 weeks later, the results come back. The tire impressions belong to a 1987 to 1989 Ford F-150 with Goodyear Wrangler tires, a specific make, model, and tire brand. Pruitt's heart races. She cross-references vehicle registrations in Arkansas in 1989. She's looking for anyone in the Goodwin area who owned that exact truck. Only 47 people in the region fit the criteria. Pruitt runs background checks on all of them. One name jumps out. Darrell Wayne Estes. Estes owned a 1988 Ford F-150. Registered in Arkansas from 1987 to 1991. Pruitt digs deeper. In 1991, Estes sold the truck to a buyer in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But before selling it, he replaced all 4 tires. What? Pruitt tracks down the buyer, now 68 years old, living in a suburb outside Oklahoma City. His name is Leonard Graves. Pruitt calls him. Mr. Graves, do you still have that truck you bought in 1991? Graves laughs. Hell yeah, I do. She's still running. Pruitt arranges to inspect the truck. She drives to Oklahoma. Examines the vehicle. Takes measurements. Photographs the frame. Then she contacts the original tire shop where Estes had the tires replaced in 1991. The shop is still in business. The owner, now retired, keeps meticulous records. He pulls the invoice. Estes replaced all 4 Goodyear Wranglers with Bridgestone Duelers. Pruitt asks why someone would replace perfectly good tires. The shop owner shrugs. People do weird things. But Pruitt knows. Estes replaced the tires to get rid of evidence. She submits her findings to the FBI. On June 10, 2023, a federal warrant is issued for the arrest of Darrell Wayne Estes. He's 68 years old now. Living in Abilene, Texas. Retired. Working part-time at an auto parts store. He thinks he's gotten away with it. He's wrong. June 21, 2023. 6:47 a.m. FBI agents knock on the door of a small house in Abilene, Texas. Darrell Wayne Estes answers in his boxer shorts and a faded Harley-Davidson t-shirt. He blinks at the agents. Confused. Darrell Wayne Estes? Yeah. You're under arrest for the murder of William Crawford. Estes doesn't resist. Doesn't run. He just stares. By 7:15 a.m., his hands are cuffed behind his back. He's led out of his house in front of neighbors who watch from their porches, coffee mugs in hand, mouths open. News cameras catch the moment. A gaunt, gray-haired man being pushed into the back of an FBI vehicle. His face blank. His eyes empty. The headline breaks within hours. Cold case solved. Truck driver's 1989 death ruled murder. Suspect arrested after 34 years. The Goodwin community is stunned. Some people remember Estes as a suspect all along. I knew it, they say. I always knew. Others are shocked. Darrell? He's been living quiet for decades. I can't believe it. Linda Crawford gets the call from Sarah Pruitt. She's in her kitchen, folding laundry. The phone rings. Mrs. Crawford? This is Sarah Pruitt with the Arkansas State Police. I have news about your husband's case. Linda's hand starts shaking. We've made an arrest. Linda collapses. She sits on the floor, the phone pressed to her ear, sobbing. Her daughters, now 44 and 41, fly home immediately. The 3 women hold each other in Linda's living room. We knew, Linda whispers. We always knew. Estes is extradited to Arkansas. He's charged with first-degree murder. Prosecutors allege the following. In December 1989, Buck Crawford had been hired by Darrell Estes for a side job, hauling stolen equipment across state lines. Buck agreed, needing the extra money for Christmas. But when Buck realized the equipment was stolen, he threatened to report Estes to the police. On the night of December 11, 1989, Estes followed Buck in his Ford F-150. He forced Buck off Highway 72. He beat him. And then he staged the scene to look like an accident. The evidence: the tire tracks matching Estes's truck. Witness statements from 1989. Bobby Kern saw them arguing. Darlene Hopper saw Estes's truck speeding away from the scene. Forensic analysis showing Buck's injuries were inconsistent with a rollover crash. And one more thing. A former cellmate of Estes's from a 2003 Texas jail stay comes forward. His name is Trevor Gill. Gill tells investigators that one night, drunk and bitter, Estes confessed. He said he took care of a truck driver in Arkansas. Gill testifies. Said the guy wouldn't keep his mouth shut. The case is airtight. Darrell Wayne Estes pleads not guilty. But the tire tracks tell a different story. And tire tracks don't lie. November 2023. Crittenden County Circuit Court. The trial begins. Prosecutor Angela Reyes is methodical. She lays out the case piece by piece. First witness, Sarah Pruitt. Pruitt takes the stand. She explains the tire forensics, how the plaster cast was analyzed, how the 3D scan identified the exact make and model, how the probability of error is less than 0.01%. She shows the jury 3D renderings of the tire impressions overlaid with Estes's truck. The match is perfect. The jury leans forward. Next witness, Bobby Kern. Kern is 71 now. He walks slowly to the stand, his hands shaking. He testifies that he saw Buck and Estes arguing at the Forest City truck stop in early December 1989. Darrell was furious, Kern says, pointing his finger in Buck's face. Buck looked scared. Defense attorney Marcus Hall cross-examines. Mr. Kern, this was 34 years ago. Are you sure you remember correctly? Kern nods. I remember. I told the police back then. They didn't listen. Next witness, Darlene Hopper. Now 78, Darlene testifies she saw a dark pickup speeding away from the crash site around 10:30 p.m. It was a Ford, she says. Dark blue or black? I'm sure of it. Hall cross-examines again. Mrs. Hopper, did you see the driver? No. So you can't say for certain it was Mr. Estes? No. But it was his truck. The defense argues the evidence is circumstantial. Yes, Estes's truck was near the scene. But that doesn't prove he killed Buck Crawford. Hall paints Estes as a scapegoat, a man with a rough past being blamed for a tragedy he didn't cause. But then the prosecution plays its final card. Trevor Gill takes the stand. Gill is 56. He served time with Estes in a Texas county jail in 2003 for unrelated charges. He testifies that one night, drunk and rambling, Estes confessed. He said he killed a truck driver in Arkansas, Gill says. Said the guy was gonna rat him out for stolen equipment. Said he followed him, ran him off the road and beat him to death. Then made it look like an accident. The courtroom goes silent. Estes's face drains of color. Linda Crawford grips her daughter's hands. Hall tries to discredit Gill. You're a convicted felon. Why should the jury believe you? Gill shrugs. Believe me or don't. I'm just telling you what he told me. The jury deliberates for 9 hours. On November 18, 2023, they return. The foreman stands. In the case of the state of Arkansas versus Darrell Wayne Estes, on the charge of first-degree murder, we find the defendant guilty. Linda Crawford collapses into her daughter's arms. 34 years. 12,410 days. And finally, one word. Guilty. Darrell Wayne Estes is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. At sentencing, Linda Crawford reads a victim impact statement. She stands at the podium, her hands shaking, her voice steady. You took my husband from me, she says, looking directly at Estes. You took a father from his daughters. You took a grandfather from his grandchildren. For 34 years we didn't know. We lived with questions. With pain. With the knowledge that someone had gotten away with murder. She pauses. But you didn't win. We never stopped believing. We never stopped fighting. And now the world knows what you did. Estes shows no emotion. His face is blank. Hollow. He's led out of the courtroom in shackles. Outside, journalists swarm Linda. She's calm. Composed. Exhausted. This doesn't bring Buck back, she says. But it means he mattered. It means someone finally listened. Sarah Pruitt is hailed as a hero in forensic circles. She's featured in law enforcement journals, interviewed on true crime podcasts, invited to speak at conferences. But she deflects the praise. I just did my job, she says. Buck Crawford deserved that much. The case becomes a landmark example of how cold case technology can solve decades-old mysteries. Arkansas State Police begin reviewing other unsolved cases from the 1980s. Tire forensics becomes a renewed focus. Linda Crawford visits Buck's grave the day after the sentencing. She kneels in the grass, her hand on the headstone. "They know now," she whispers. Everyone knows. Buck Crawford's case raises difficult questions. Why did the initial investigation fail? Incompetence. Apathy. A rush to close the case and move on. Sergeant Tom Ridley took the easy answer. He saw what he expected to see. And Darrell Estes should have been caught in 1989. Instead, he lived free for 34 years. What does that say about the justice system? About small-town cover-ups? About the cases that are still unsolved because someone didn't look hard enough? How many other families are waiting for answers? How many other tire tracks were ignored? How many other witnesses were dismissed? Linda Crawford spent 3 decades fighting, refusing to let her husband be forgotten, calling the police every year, keeping James Coslad's report on her kitchen table. She never gave up. And that persistence, combined with Sarah Pruitt's expertise, finally brought justice. But justice delayed is justice denied. Buck's daughters grew up without their father. His grandchildren never met him. Linda spent 34 years not knowing if she'd ever see the truth. That's the cost of silence. The cost of a system that failed. But it's also a story of hope. Because the truth, no matter how buried, can be uncovered. Technology evolves. New detectives take over cold cases. Evidence that seemed meaningless in 1989 becomes crucial in 2023. The tire tracks didn't lie. They never do. They were waiting. Pressed into the dirt. Holding a secret for 34 years. All they needed was someone willing to listen. Buck Crawford's story is not just about a murder solved. It's about a family that refused to forget. A detective who refused to give up. And a truth that refused to stay buried. Linda Crawford is 74 now. She still visits Buck's grave every Sunday. She brings flowers. She tells him about the grandchildren he never met. About Katie's nursing career. About Sarah's students. She tells him the world finally knows what happened. His daughters have children of their own now. They tell them about the grandfather who was taken too soon, but whose memory fought its way back to the light. Darrell Wayne Estes will die in prison. His name is now synonymous with cowardice, with cruelty. But Buck Crawford's name is synonymous with something else. Persistence. Justice. Well, this case reminds us that cold cases are never truly cold. They're just waiting for the right person to care. Sarah Pruitt continues her work with the Arkansas State Police Cold Case Unit. She solved 4 more cases since Buck Crawford. Each one feels like giving a family their voice back, she says. If you know something about an unsolved case, speak up. If you've lost someone to violence, don't stop fighting. And if you're watching this, remember, Buck Crawford's story is a reminder that the truth is patient. It will wait. But it won't wait forever. December 12, 1989. A man died on a dark highway in Arkansas. 34 years later, the world finally knows why. Rest easy, Buck Crawford. Your story has been told. If this case moved you, leave a comment below. Share your thoughts, your own experiences with unsolved cases, or just let us know you were here. And don't forget to subscribe, because there are more stories like Buck's, waiting to be heard. We'll see you in the next one. She tells him the world finally knows what happened. His daughters have children of their own now. They tell them about the grandfather who was taken too soon, but whose memory fought its way back to the light. Darrell Wayne Estes will die in prison. His name is now synonymous with cowardice, with cruelty. But Buck Crawford's name is synonymous with something else. Persistence. Justice. Well, this case reminds us that cold cases are never truly cold. They're just waiting for the right person to care. Sarah Pruitt continues her work with the Arkansas State Police Cold Case Unit. She solved 4 more cases since Buck Crawford. Each one feels like giving a family their voice back, she says. If you know something about an unsolved case, speak up. If you've lost someone to violence, don't stop fighting. And if you're watching this, remember, Buck Crawford's story is a reminder that the truth is patient. It will wait. But it won't wait forever. December 12, 1989. A man died on a dark highway in Arkansas. 34 years later, the world finally knows why. Rest easy, Buck Crawford. Your story has been told. If this case moved you, leave a comment below. Share your thoughts, your own experiences with unsolved cases, or just let us know you were here. And don't forget to subscribe, because there are more stories like Buck's, waiting to be heard. We'll see you in the next one. She tells him the world finally knows what happened. His daughters have children of their own now. They tell them about the grandfather who was taken too soon, but whose memory fought its way back to the light. Darrell Wayne Estes will die in prison. His name is now synonymous with cowardice, with cruelty. But Buck Crawford's name is synonymous with something else. Persistence. Justice. Well, this case reminds us that cold cases are never truly cold. They're just waiting for the right person to care. Sarah Pruitt continues her work with the Arkansas State Police Cold Case Unit. She solved 4 more cases since Buck Crawford. Each one feels like giving a family their voice back, she says. If you know something about an unsolved case, speak up. If you've lost someone to violence, don't stop fighting. And if you're watching this, remember, Buck Crawford's story is a reminder that the truth is patient. It will wait, but it won't wait forever. December 12, 1989. A man died on a dark highway in Arkansas. 34 years later, the world finally knows why. Rest easy, Buck Crawford. Your story has been told. If this case moved you, leave a comment below. Share your thoughts, your own experiences with unsolved cases, or just let us know you were here. And don't forget to subscribe, because there are more stories like Buck's waiting to be heard. We'll see you in the next one.